Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. Well, we're in the shop today and we're picking up where we left off last time. We're going to keep building on our engineering car / tender here at the Crow's Nest Railroad. So if that sounds interesting, I hope you can join me. Well, let's pick up where we left off last time. I'm not so sure how many episodes there'll be on the build of this tender. We'll just kind of see how things go. There's the frame. Last time we tested it, got it all assembled, and now it's time to actually make it useful and build the body for it. And I've made some initial cuts, but we got some more work at the table saw today. So here's our piece of plywood. And it's actually the base that's going to sit on top of the frame. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a pretty thick frame, about 1/4 of an inch steel. And I'll be sitting on this, and so my plan is to have this top extend out slightly past the dimensions of the steel frame so that all of the weight will be transmitted down and not in the center in between the frame, but the weight will be transferred straight down on the vertical sections of this frame. So it should be super sturdy, and I'd really like this to be removable, both for perhaps manipulating the frame and for adjusting the trucks or whatever, or maybe even putting a different sort of a body on it, having it be a little bit of a chameleon, so to speak. So this overlaps just a little bit, and what I want to do is I want to cut some short pieces that I can attach to the bottom of this that will key this, so I can simply set it into the frame and it'll key there. Later, if I really feel the need to bolt it or screw it into the frame, we can always do that. But for now, all the weight will be on the edges. There won't be any weight really in here. So I think if I just key it with a couple of cross members, one at the back, one at the front, that should work out just great. So let's get started on that. Okay, made a couple little blocks. You can see that I just shaved the corners a little bit so that they don't interfere with the two welds on the inside of the frame. And this will fit in there like that. And just key this both front and back and sideways. So I've got one for the rear, one for the front, and as always, I always mark the parts because I so easily get confused. What I think we'll do is I'll set the base on the frame. I'll put a little double stick tape on these and I'll slip them up underneath and lock them into position, and that way I can pull it off and screw these in. I'm not going to glue these because I want to be able to make some adjustments later if needed. Alrighty, I've got the base temporarily clamped down. These clamps are so helpful. And to get the right distance left and right so I know it's centered, I just use a little combination square. And remember, when you're adjusting a combination square for center like this, any slight change you make has to be half of the error if this is shifted, because you're going to increase one side plus you're going to decrease the other side. So don't go crazy adjusting this. Adjust it about half of what you think it should be. So we're centered side to side and we're just fine back to front. So let me get some double stick tape on these. I'm going to reach under there and see if I can get these adhered to the top. Alright, as you can see, a slight change of plan. I decided to just flip the whole frame and base upside down. I've got it, all the dimensions clamped and measured, and it was just easier that way. So I can screw these in and not have to worry about fitting them from underneath. So let's do the front one now. And just to help this drop into the frame a little easier, I'm going to put a slight chamfer on the front and side edges on the bottom of these little cleats. Well, believe it or not, that's probably the most fiddly part of our whole process of building a body here, simply because we're dealing with the undercarriage. But now everything is out in the open and we're free to proceed, and we can see everything that's going on. Like I mentioned in the first part of this series, this is sort of the look that I'm going for. It's going to be sort of a tender engineering car, and it's going to be kind of that burgundy theme, probably using burgundy and black, and I'm going to simulate some rivets around here and the frame on top. So I've already started to take some measurements, and I would like the seat height on this engineering car to match the seat height on my other one, so I know how far it is up above the footboard. It's about 11.5 from the footboard up to the top of the seat. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do for a seat yet, but anyway, I know about how high it is off the rail and how high it is off of the bottom of the footrest. Simply for my own convenience, I get used to a certain height, and that's great. So now we have to take this thickness into consideration, as well as the thickness of whatever seat I'm going to have across the top. It'll be made out of the same material. So I simply have to get the remainder dimension to cut the sides and the front and the back. And we want to do all of the cutting of one dimension at the same time on the table saw so that everything perfectly matches. So I know what my dimension is. Let's rip a few pieces of plywood. I've already pre-milled the pieces of plywood, so they're already cut to length. I just have to rip them down for the height, and you can see I'm at 7 1/4 plus, a little over 7 1/4. And so let me pass all 4 of those pieces through the saw and set them up on the base and see how it looks. So here's the front, the 2 sides, and the back. I've got a clamp on there just to kind of hold it so everything doesn't crash on the floor. I'll basically glue and screw this together, and I don't even have to hide the screws because I'm going to put some trim on the side. And for the front, well, I want to be able to put a little metal tray of coal and maybe some tools on there. So I already have the little metal trays here, and I ripped up a few small pieces of plywood that will act as just little retaining walls. Kind of like this. Anyway, you get the idea. So I'll have a seat up here. I think I may go with some kind of a little sliding seat. I thought at first maybe I would cover the whole thing, but every once in a while it's handy just to drop something down in, even when you're sitting on there. So I think I'll do a shorter seat, and then I can kind of slide it into position and have these open spaces. This will always be indoors during the rain and storms and things. So next step, I got to get busy and actually make this box, and then make this small low height box on the front. Alright, I'll screw this together now. It's drilled and screwed, held in place with clamps, and I'm using the base to help me keep everything square. Once I've got those other screws on the other side, I'll pull the clamps, I'll pull everything apart and put some tight bond on the joints and then screw it back together. This just makes it easier for me I can make tiny adjustments while it's clamped to the pieces and not worry about the clock ticking on the glue. So I'll get everything screwed together, I'll pull it apart, glue it, and that'll be done. And this top box attaches to the bottom in the same way, glued and screwed together. Well, time to let this glue set up. You can see I've got the front little retaining walls in there. I'm just going to glue those in there. There's no need for any hardware. There won't be any stress on those parts. So I'm going to let the glue set up, and I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Hope it was helpful, or maybe at least you could learn from my mistakes. And I hope to see you right here next time on the Crow's Nest Railroad as we continue our build on my little tender. Thank you so much for watching.